microphones, but I will do my best. Anyway, I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm completely passionate about jewelry, and I'm completely passionate about making my husband buy me more jewelry, and I'm also completely passionate about making the brides in America get what they want, and particularly that one piece of jewelry that will last them an absolute lifetime, and also to have them kick off a relationship with a jeweler who can take the sort of intimidation out of the process of buying real jewelry over the course of your life and establishing family heirlooms. I had the benefit of being born into a family where my mother was the last member of a family line that in the 20s made it big on something I can't remember, and I was able to like inherit jewelry as part of it, but that isn't the case for most of America. So I have these like little sapphire, channel set bands and things like that, and it is a passion point of mine for people to start establishing the whole idea of heirlooms in their own lives. And your wedding day, to me, is the place where that relationship with fine jewelry truly begins. And so I'm so happy to talk to you about it today, because I think educating not only this customer, which is my day job, but my Friday job is to also educate retailers or of all different varieties, really how to get into the mind of the bridal customer and make sure that you're establishing a fantastic relationship and doing a great business and making them happy at the same time. What we do, and we started, as Laura said, 15 years ago with a single mission, which was to make it easy to plan a wedding, to have an incredible wedding. And that was every little piece of what you did. So in those days, it was a really big deal to be on the internet with a capital I, like the web. It was a hot new thing. And now, of course, it means being in every single medium, whether it is the internet, obviously, but magazines, apps, being on social media or otherwise. And we have this sort of 360-degree approach to satisfying a bride's every single need. And by being the first in the marketplace, really to kind of innovate the wedding category, we had honestly the luck, and I have quite a few wrinkles to show for the hard work as well, that we became really the #1 in this category. And almost every bride in America, pretty much every bride in America, comes across as a part of our network, and 8 in 10 of them are actually members of my site. And these are not, getting these numbers means you have to have everyone. And most importantly, I think, because you are jewelers in the room, it's important to realize that a lot of these are incredibly affluent customers. We have the most affluent brides of anyone in the country. Look at that. There's 1.5 million users with a household income of $100,000 or more. That's an extraordinary number. And this is critical because, as you will see, this is the market that we need to be talking about. Now, what I do with this powerful relationship with the customer, one of the things I do is I make sure that we're the only place in the world where we can aggregate information to feed it back to the industries that are a part of the world of weddings to make sure we're all doing a better job satisfying this customer. And so, as Laura said, every 2 years we do a survey in different categories, and every 2 years we do a very deep jewelry study. And it's of 14,000 brides, which is an extraordinary high number for a survey. I don't know if most surveys are like 600 people. This is 14,000 brides and 1,700 grooms. They're a little bit harder to get to talk, let's face it. Women are much more interested in sharing than men are, but even so, that's a huge number for a groom study. And we fielded this, just came off, as she said. This was fielded February through March of this year, and it was not only women about to get married, couples about to get married, but ones who had been married last year. So it gives us a really nice slice of understanding. So first off, I'm sure a lot of you are here in this presentation because you believe there is a huge bridal opportunity. But just to remind you why it's worth spending your time here, the opportunity in bridal overall is $70 billion. Well, $11 billion of the $70 billion wedding industry is in jewelry. It's an extraordinary large market opportunity. Some people are shaking their heads like, how can that possibly be the case? Well, and one of the interesting things to note in advance is it's a year-round opportunity. So we think like, oh, everyone gets engaged at Christmas, right? Well, actually, weddings and engagements happen all throughout the year. There is that big, huge surge between Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day on proposals, but the bridal jewelry opportunity, whether it's expanding into engagement rings, bridal gifts, brides and grooms gifts, bridal party gifts, is a year-round opportunity. So it's a great way to kind of even out your business. And and what's another interesting, important thing to note is that these are big ticket numbers. The engagement ring spend this year went up for the first time in years. It had been flattening, going down, and this year it went back up again for $5,400, and the wedding band spend went up by 20%, almost 20% between our last two surveys, which means this is an opportunity that is not like other categories in weddings. I have to tell you, like fine china, these are not charts that you're seeing in fine china, for example. That's an industry where people are losing their relationship to a premium quality product. Where here it's being regained, and this is really important. And obviously there are economic factors which are putting pressure on our couples, but they're holding fast to the belief that this is being an important purchase. And this is why we look about that it's a huge opportunity, because it's not just the engagement ring, which is a nice $5,500 average, but it's also the wedding bands, as we said. Wedding day jewelry is another almost $900 spend per average per brides. Bridesmaids gifts, $90 to $100 dollars each on each gift. People have an average bridal party of 4. That's another nice big ticket. And then we really believe, most importantly, that this is a kickoff to a series of purchasings that happen over this, sort of 5 to 10 year period, which are just the other legs of the bridal opportunity. Some other news we got out of our survey, and I'm going to go into some really detailed information about marketing to the bridal customer, and then give you some real like sort of hard tactics. But let me tell you some more things that came out of our survey, so you can kind of get the data in your head. We love data. A few engagement ring trends that were revealed in the study. That 85% of people are getting a new ring. Of this market segment, there were still 10% of people who were doing vintage, and that was actually sort of on the rise, which is interesting. And I think it is one of the things that I felt reading this whole study is this quest for uniqueness and originalness is one of the things that's changing some of the dynamics, and I'll talk more about that later. Round diamond obviously has always been the leader, but the cushion and Asher cuts are gaining in huge popularity, and the average stone size is up a point. It actually was 0.9 carats in 2011. It's a full-fledged carat, so girls are just not settling for anything less. So that's a good thing. Now, white gold is overall we know the reasons why people love the look of platinum, can't necessarily afford it in all instances. And I think the interesting change here, the only real thing that made any movement was, I think, sterling silver, which I think is actually a testament to people looking beyond the space and looking for things that are sort of more unique designs. People occasionally like alternative people wanting to do things that are different. And rose gold was a change, and I think we've been seeing that just in fashion jewelry. What's most interesting, and I think a lot of people, are not necessarily thrilled about, is the change here. If you look in the grooms, is where the most significant change is. If you look in the sort of tungsten, from 2%, on the bride side, 32%, but it's a change. It's up significantly from previous years. That's really something. The tungsten rings are gaining real momentum. And when I do a quick search on that, my interpretation of this is that it is a very masculine look. It is, that their rings in general have a slightly different overall feel. They're less classic looking, and that's why I think they're getting momentum. I don't think it's necessarily, maybe it's because the material is, somewhat lighter or whatever all those sell points are, but I think it's because guys think it sounds masculine. I think it's like the looks, the designs made from them are very masculine, and so it's helping, and they're a little bit more alternative, I think, is where the real changes are happening from there. Today's bridal customer. So now that we kind of understand the opportunity and kind of the product that they're buying, I'm going to take a closer look at who these brides and grooms are, so that you can kind of completely understand them when you walk into your store, and we're going to talk about the shopping process some too. So who are they? On average, today's couples are in their late 20s. What is interesting about that is the older they get, the more educated they are, right? And the more busy they are because they're all working full time. So it's just something, these are not people with a lot of time. They're busy, but they're smart. And that's going to play out in how they actually do their shopping process. And their household income is actually higher than the national average because, and granted, this is skewed a tiny bit because this is fielded in my market. I have most of the American population, but I do, I'm not polling the super low end or the super, super, super high end, the 4 people who buy the, 9 carat diamond. So this is the biggest, if you take one slide away from this entire presentation, this is the most important thing. When you are marketing to the bridal customer, you are marketing to women, not men. 2/3, 64% of brides were involved in their engagement ring purchase decision. Don't be confused. Only 1/3 of them were actually a surprise for the bride themselves. Why? Because this is a huge item. It's a very funny story. I was at an event yesterday getting my makeup done, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do this jewelry presentation. She's like, well, I've been meaning to tell you. I'm about to get engaged, and I've been on TheKnot looking for engagement rings. I'm like, check. I'm not lying. The information's not lying. The girl, she goes, and you know what? It's really important to me because this is a thing I'm going to wear my entire life, and I just don't want to be wearing the wrong thing. Like, I want to like it. We're going to spend a lot of money on it. This is exactly what's happening. Couples are together a long time before they're deciding to get married. They've decided to get married. There is no reason, and it's way too high anxiety for the guy. There's way too much variety out there. It is intimidating, and you can see on this stat, although it's a little bit small, 9 in 10 grooms were completely happy with this level of involvement from their bride-to-be. They do not want to take that risk themselves. God knows you don't want to open a box and be like, thanks. You do not want that with one of the first biggest purchases of your life. So this is incredibly important. So 1/3 of them were honestly bought their own ring, with the guy. They were standing there where the ring was purchased. They either made the selection themselves. 1/3 of them were deeply involved in that process, sending, sharing images, picking out things. I like this and that. And only 1/3 of them. And the other third, honestly, if I were to read behind this, they told their mothers and best friends what they wanted, and it was a surprise because he asked her mother and the sister. So she's really driving this whole thing, because nobody is surprised these days that they're getting engaged. Honestly, it's all been talked about since date number 5 in this age of over revealing. So because they're smart and busy, it is very obvious that the internet is going to be the #1 most influential resource in this purchasing decision. It is, and far and away, the #1 resource. They are, going to be doing a tremendous amount of research online because it's there for them when they need it and want it. They're comfortable. They don't have to ask any questions. This is what they're used to. Every single 28-year-old relies on the internet to make every purchasing decision. Who do they rely on next? What I thought this was great for everyone in this room was actually they felt that the jeweler was the next most reliable source of information. This is very important because it is not the same in every category that I do across weddings. There are categories where people trust the salespeople and where they trust them less so. So this is not only a number that's incredibly important, but incredibly important one to pay attention to in your store experience, that education is a part of what you're doing. And that establishing that trust is an important thing. Friends and family, the third most important. Wedding magazines, still very important. And then everything else drops, drastically off after that. Now, we, of course, have always known that we thought that the purchasing was happening by the bride, essentially, and then it was happening on websites like TheKnot, which is why we, on first glance, should be like, well, people come to TheKnot after they're engaged, right? Well, we, early on, got so many requests for people to be like, don't you have engagement rings? And we even ourselves assumed that you'd only come to us after you had gotten engaged. Well, 40% of our audience, and as we said, that's 8 in 10, we mean those are members. 40% of the nearly 2 million brides that join our site every year do not have an engagement ring when they join the site, which is why we devote, out of the 9 pictures that make up what we call the above the fold space, the most important space on our website is actually devoted to engagement rings, because it is a critical, purchasing. So this is, 1 million people, basically, who are every year who need a ring and are going to, and there's not really any place where you could find this aggregated set of information. This is what the internet's good at. So everyone expects to be able to find an aggregated set of information on the internet where you can search and sort and see everything. And this is what our whole engagement ring gallery finder is. But the expectations are also very high. You should be able to find what you want, find it quickly, manage your information by price. I mean, think of all the facility you have in every other place you shop online to target exactly what you want. browse lots of images quickly, and that is the role of this. But what is also very important is people expect, particularly your average 28-year-old, expects to be able to know exactly where to buy that ring within minutes of finding a ring that they like. And this is actually, what we kind of invented for this industry, which was, here's a ring by Jeff Cooker. You can not only find it, save it, share it. That's what people do, pushing it out to all their sort of favorite places, to their friends. We're actually soon adding on the ability to poll your girlfriends in a separate little sort of Facebook chat, because you not only want to like it yourself, you want to see what your friends think about everything. We like to crowdsource, us girls. But most importantly, you can, within one click, find out where to try on that particular ring right near you. These are the expectations of an internet shopper, or particularly of a 28-year-old. That's our job too. And even more importantly, they expect to do it on their mobile phone. So and this is a really important thing. For us as a company, we quickly started to see over the course of the past couple of years how much traffic was being driven by mobile. 85%, a huge leap from 2011, of the marrying age bridal market owns a smartphone and does heavy research on the smartphone. 50% of them own an iPhone. It is still the most powerful platform in this market. Android is at 31%, BlackBerry is on its way down. But and this is a very new stat. This Christmas, I believe, is when the next level, the iPad ownership, jumping to 30%, is very interesting in terms of where they have to get information from. Tablets are very important to us. We have all of our properties on tablets and a site that's optimized for tablet. But of these people own tablet, 29% obviously are an iPad, but they're really using this as a way to consume information. And they're consuming information, and there's a lot of study that Google does on this, that they're like going from platform, they're on a mobile device, they then do the rest of the search on a desktop, and then they resume it on an iPad, and they're switching back and forth between devices. All types of shoppers are now. And most often, obviously a decision like this, they're consummating in store. But oftentimes, the phone is the last step in that process, because where was that again? Where did that find that? I think I'm in the neighborhood of where that ring was. Let me go find it now. And so it's critical for us to all be thinking sort of multi-platform when you're thinking about this audience in particular. So young, so active, so busy and on the go. And so let's talk about that ring shopping process for a second, because, and after that we're going to go sort of our top 5 marketing strategies for reaching these customers. As we said, the bride's off really doing one line of shopping, and the groom's off doing his own line of shopping. And we wanted to kind of hone in on what did the groom think he was doing. Before the engagement himself, remember, when we do the whole other study on proposals, it's funny. It's like you're together, you decide you're going to get engaged, then you pretend you're not going to get engaged so that he can surprise you that you're getting engaged. So and everyone's then trying to figure out, which puts interesting pressure on, okay, if she's not going to be surprised that she's getting engaged, and she's not going to be surprised about the ring, then I better make the world's most blowout proposal, because it's like the only thing, and she's really focused on that. Because by the way, her friend had like an orchestra strolling down the street. I mean, it's getting outrageous what poor guys have to do. I hope it goes back and they can just buy a nice ring and get on their knee. But he is researching, because he's petrified, right? I'm about to put down a ton of money on a product that I've never purchased before, that I know I can do it wrong, and by the way, she's going to catch me if I do it wrong. And this is in fact part of the psychographic, I think. So he's researching overall for 4.5 kind of months of the process, and I think this is the process when she starts to talk about it. He starts to get the information, so he's not kind of caught unawares, and he has enough information. Now, but he sees himself as researching for that 4.5 months and only shopping for 3 out of those months. So really, he's still researching while he's shopping. He doesn't really know what he's doing at any of those points in time. But it's interesting to, when you hear those two, if someone says, oh, I'm just doing my research or whatever else, they're actually considering that they may be at the last moment before they're going to purchase. So don't make any assumptions about what that kind of terminology means in their mind. And if you look, 17% of them are spending 6 months researching. So even if you don't know, even if it's not imminent, I think you have to give this customer like a lot of room to be going through this process on their own time, because obviously they're spending a lot of time doing it. And interestingly, my favorite stat of all, But grooms who have kept the bride out of it are only doing it for 2.9 months. I have my own theories about that, but I'm not going to go into now. But he's visiting 4 retailers, and he's seriously considering 24 different rings. So you see, this is a widely studied. They're looking, trying on. That's an look at that, 24 rings. That's not like I saw on the internet 24 rings, because we asked the question in a very particular way. So this is a scary purchase, and so they're going to go through a lot. And so I think we all need to be prepared that the process is something that takes a lot of time, and they want the room, and they expect the room to take that time doing it. Now, 4 in 10 of the men surveyed are purchasing from a local independent jeweler. And there are a lot of other places that people are shopping as well. Interestingly, only 10% of the people are shopping on the internet, so it's not something to be afraid of, and I have a whole slide about that moving forward. Now here's what's interesting. The more sophisticated grooms shop in the independents. I'm sure we can get you this data because it's a little bit hard to see, but there's a big difference between the people who shop in the chain stores and the people who shop in the independents. The independent jewelers customer are a little older, they're more affluent, they're more interested in diamond education, right? So they really want to get in there, they want to do the right thing, whereas I think the other customer is very much trusting of the chain, they're going to go in something, and that's what they're using they're not getting educated as much because they're not worried about it, because they're considering the purchase in a very different way. But the biggest difference that you need to look at here is the actual spend, that they're spending double when they're coming into an independent jewelry store. Remember, these are averages, so it's a wide range of things. Not everyone's in that spot, but in the national and regional chains, they're spending around almost $4,000, and they're spending over $7,000 when they're going to an independent. So this is critical for a lot of you in the room. Now, only 1 in 10 rings, as we said, are purchased online. But here's an interesting stat to know: 30% of people considered purchasing online. Right? We all think we can do everything online now, and you go in but it's very interesting to note what the factors were that they didn't. They actually wanted to be able to see it in person. Now, what's hilarious about this is, like, they could actually tell anything seeing the ring in person, honestly. But it's more comforting to have seen it in person. It's such an important, such a studied decision. And they were concerned about making such a significant purchase online. They didn't know how that they were going to have the support if she didn't like it, with all of those factors. And feel like I needed more personal attention. I think it's an interesting thing. That concept of personal attention. You'll see that come up again at the end of this presentation. And a lot of them actually wanted to be able to show it to their fiance in person as a part of the experience of shopping for a ring. Now, when you have people come into your store, I think it's very interesting to know the difference of what drives the men in the purchasing decision versus what drives the women. So we asked the same series of questions to the men and the women in our survey, and ranked in order of importance the purchasing process. And I think these are really just awesome pieces of data. The most interesting difference was how quality factored in. For the groom, the quality was the #1 most important thing about the purchase. To me, I feel like this is an insurance policy for him, right? No matter what, I know I got her a high quality diamond, right? So if I get the style wrong, I'll at least have gotten her a quality diamond, because that's the part that's really lasting. And I need to show her that she's quality. That I believe in quality, and that I'm this is the ranking, I think, for people. Styles they don't see as a ranking. Well, she's actually not that concerned about the stone quality. I mean, I'm sure she is, but nowhere near as much as what her friends are going to say when they see that ring on her finger and be like, "That's pretty. Really? Do you like it? Opal?" And so I think that style and setting is really so it is really style driven for her and quality driven for him. And so, and it's also, there's an interesting, differential price and value and stuff like that, but it's for obvious reasons, but I think it's just good to remember. And when the two of them are there together, who to be addressing, kind of what to. So, wait a minute, what's my next? No, I'm just pointing that out. Which I already did. Oh well. Okay. So let's talk about some sort of marketing strategies to reach these millennials. We understand the opportunity, we understand a little bit more about the customer and their shopping process, but what are you gonna have to actually think about when you're marketing to them? And before I jump in, I just wanna say that, we have actually saying in our company that marketing is actually everyone's job in the company. And I think it's very important to establish that in your organizations as well, that everyone needs to be thinking about the process of establishing these relationships with customer is really what marketing is. Marketing isn't something somebody in your organization does. It's what marketing is about establishing relationships. And so everyone is essentially involved in that. That touches every little part of your business. So one of the things that I think is critical to think about in this point in time, our world is moving very quickly. Aesthetic things are moving very quickly. And it's a good time to just do a check every couple of years. And just because you had a design that worked for you 5 years ago and did really strong for your business and you feel like it's established, you really have to ask yourself, is my brand standing this test of time, or do I need to give it a refresh? Now, I have a very embarrassing reveal here. In 1997, when we launched TheKnot on AOL, and the screens on AOL were this big, and everything was on like modems, and so you had to make everything in like black and white and tiny little colors, and this was actually, our brand. But we refresh our brand every 2 years, because we know that that's how fast design is actually changing in this world. So every 2 years, making an adjustment. And this is our most recent launch in 2013, and you see it's an entirely different evolution. Of course, a lot of it's because the technology has changed. When your website was first built, when the capabilities, what you have, people should be investing far less in their printed materials and more on and I would actually spend more on good design and get less stuff for it, is what I would say. Like cleaner design and less stuff, because the things you can have less pieces of material to do your business. But much higher design, because it really is something that people who are younger, like right now, have a strong sense of attention to. And here's what I would say about what modern brands, and I think you can all recognize if sort of brands are doing a lot of the sort of cutting edge thinking. Just take Apple into consideration right now, which is really driving 90% of the industrial design in the country, and even thinking of packaging design and everything else is about being like very clean and simple and high impact, and additionally photo driven. So clean layouts, white backgrounds, they're really what speaks of modernity and quality and class, at the time as well. Photo driven content. There is people say now there's a reason why Facebook just made their change from being all those text-based updates to putting all the photos first. There is a reason why they bought Instagram. Our world is a photo-driven environment. It is the economy of the internet. It's the way people think about things. It's the way they make first impressions. Everything is about image. And so really photo-driven is the way you should first and foremost think about expressing your brand. And get rid of the text. You have so much you want to say about your company, and pick one line. Pick a very, so people will be able to find out the rest of it, or put it at the bottom of the page. Your first impression needs to be simple and high impact. All the sort of blue hyperlinks, if you still have those on your website, those very early days, even though they get a lot of attention, they just don't speak to people who really understand what's going on now. And really just the sort of dark backgrounds, the like entirely everything being sort of left alive. There's a lot of really cutting edge things you could be doing on design for the internet, which I'm not really concerned about anyone here doing, because there's a lot of the big companies haven't done them yet, like responsive design. You might be hearing these things, and eventually you'll need to get there, but right now just worry about being clean and clear and straightforward to people. And I have a couple of sites that I think are doing kind of an interesting job. This is an example of a website of our neighbors in New York City, and they've created this instant connection with a visitor by using one high impact image. They're not trying to communicate that they have every single thing in their store and making sure their product offering is right up front. They know that this is an emotional connection. She's got eye contact. She has a big rock in her fingers. So there's no question what you're there for. But it's a simple way to make a relationship with this brand. It's very hard to pick an image. But it doesn't matter if it's the perfect image. It matters that it's an image. It's better to pick one image that you're not quite sure about if you're choosing between two than it is to put both up there because you can't decide, right? And if, feel what it is for a while, then you can test the other one for a while. But it's always better to sort of to just go for it, because it's a much easier way to establish a relationship. I think it's also important to think about streamlining your website, particularly in the areas that are speaking to bridal customers. You know, they don't really want to be worrying about that you have like watches and, you know, gifts for old ladies or, you know, whatever. They don't want to be competing. They want to find their way quickly to the bridal area of your business and understand that it's speaking directly to them. Even if that means it doesn't exactly match every other like area of your site, it should create that instant feeling that you know you are marketing to a 28-year-old woman with taste and style and a understanding of, you know, what high quality, good, you know, graphic design is. Here's an interesting another angle, which is a little bit more like, you know, does everyone know the rise of infographics, all those pieces, people sharing information and with aggressive graphic design. So this is a totally different take than the single photo approach. And if you have a really good graphic designer and someone doing conceptual design for you, you can do something like this. This is obviously a site that really goes to Texas A&M customers. They realize that they're the girls and you know the guys coming into their store were Aggies, and they just went for it. They said, I know there are other people who probably aren't Texas A&M. They might be like, you know, UT people, but we're just going to go for it. And so they really obviously like really decided to take like a more edgy approach and not showcase product, which is good to do, but only, as I said, if you have a really good graphic designer and a really good marketing agency or someone you're working with who knows how to do those things well. Don't do it if you can't do it right. I think, but it's really cute and it's you know impactful. Selection. Don't be afraid to put your product on your website or to put enough product. People like to know what you have before you go into the store. That's a lot of why we've been so successful on TheKnot. They want to see the stuff. They don't want to come into your store and have that embarrassing moment and be like, I don't like anything here. How do I get out without them talking to me? It's an uncomfortable thing. They kind of want to know. They want to, before they walk in, they want to say what they were looking for. And so you want to have enough, you know, enough product there for them to get a sense of. And this is Michael C. Fina, who is obviously you know, a big New York independent. And what's interesting here too is that this market, the people who are 28 years old, what they want more than anything else is price transparency. It's a very, very complicated thing across all of these industries. But what's interesting here is they can see how much those settings cost, right? They want that. They expect it. We expect to be able to find a price for everything on the internet and be armed with that information. It's not because I'm price shopping necessarily. It's because I want to know how much things cost, once again, so that I'm not kind of embarrassed when I walk in and I'm like, I want the one, and it turns out that's not my price range. They want to know exactly what they're dealing with, and they want to spend the max, they want to get the most they can get for their budget, but they don't like to be uninformed. And this is, as we said, just the modern customer. So. Another website that I thought sort of had an interesting angle on it. What is interesting about this site is that they really have a clear call to action, and they clearly invested in this sort of a build a ring tool. And I'm not saying I think that that's necessarily important. I think there's other things about this site that I wouldn't necessarily support. But I love the fact that they said they use, if you have something you really want people to do, then it is important to understand the hierarchy of your site, that's the number one thing. So they've decided to make it build your ring now. They knew what they wanted you to do. They're not giving you 5 choices, browse, build. They're like, go do this. And it's okay to commit, because once again, people like to kind of be told, like, okay, this is where I'm going to take my next step to do. So I think clear calls to action are also a very important thing to consider when you're looking at your site and driving people and having the confidence to tell them what you think is going to convert best on your website or give them the most information that they need. Now, this is, you know, I know you're all here today to kind of go out and look at, you know, the amazing new selection of product made by all the incredible, you know, designers in this country. And I think that keeping your inventory fresh and having a little bit of everything is something that, particularly some of the new trends, is something that we find that customers really like. They like to try on and look at a lot of different things. As we say, they're like 24, even if they have an idea in their mind, they like to kind of debate, well, I did want to see what that looked like. And it helps them get close to actually making a decision to know that they've seen a wide, range of things. So having a couple of different pieces from some of the more aggressive trends, I think, is something that customers like to do. Here's some of the, trends that this is from our most recent issue that obviously some of them have been around for a while, like cushion and halo, these are, but sort of looking at these sort of floral accents with the whole sort of rise of turn of the century style. Color is something we're seeing so much more attention to people, and this is when I say that rise for uniqueness. People really want to do different. There's one thing I hear from every wedding person: I just don't want the ring that, or whatever else, I just don't want the wedding that my cousin had. I want something really different, something really unique. And deco is, I think, one of the hottest trends that we're seeing and will continue to, and I personally love that. So now I also just want to make sure that we remember, and I'm going to just hit this a couple times home, that making sure that you have and understand the rest of your product offering through the eyes of a bride. So you don't have a section of your store called bridesmaids gifts. You don't necessarily have to. But when she's in there, there's an area of things knowing, okay, this is probably woman's going to spend about, somewhere between $50 and $120 for her bridesmaids. When particularly if she was in shopping for bands or things like that, it's not a bad thing to be like, and just somewhere down the road you're going to be having to shop for this. I want to show you these new things I got that I thought would be amazing bridesmaids gifts. Put it in her mind, bridesmaids gifts. Right, that store, they had unique options for bridesmaids gifts. And obviously for the groom, and for the bride as well, they are buying, fine jewelry. As I said, 58% of brides are wearing fine jewelry on their wedding day. Like really, making a purchase, and it's an important, once again, investment. The groom may be buying it as well. She's often buying it herself. So it's an area to, once again, focus on. I talked a lot about mobile and how important it was to this customer. I don't think any of us in this room would deny that, this has basically become like our lifeblood, right? Like, just, where's my phone? It's like the worst thing you can say to anyone, that they thought they lost their phone. And everyone is so, kind of intensely attached to it. And I think that I want to make sure that everyone is thinking about mobile in the right way, so that you can capture these visitors through mobile and not be too invested in it, because I think we're also at a dangerous time, and we've seen this over the history of being, we're always having to be on the bleeding edge of everything, but everybody doesn't need to be on the bleeding edge. That's why things like, sites like us do. I'm concerned right now. Okay, so yes, two things. One, you need to know if you do invest in a mobile website, and I'm focusing on this, your website should be visible through mobile. That's called an M.dot site. People say it's something that adjusts. On an iPhone, you can see anyone's website. But remember, there are a couple of things that are not visible through, particularly, what do we say? iPhones and iPads. Flash, not visible. Don't just go home, ask your people if there's any flash on your site, and get it off your site. It's really not good. It feels sexy. It's great for those desktop visitors. If someone can make the site sense who is viewing your site and make it not be flash, but just make sure, because it's nothing more of a turnoff. And what, recent study, that Google did this big study, and 40% of users, if they don't find a mobile friendly site, will just turn away from that customer, from that provider altogether. They just are not worth dealing with. And so you're going to do different things, though. You do not take an exact replica of your site and make it your mobile site. You're going to want, 9 times out of 10, people are going to your mobile site because they actually were clicking from somewhere and they needed to find where you were, right? Very simple things. Think about why someone's coming to you first. Pick some high-impact things to have on your main screen. They're far better off navigating to other places to get more in-depth information, even just having a simple image and simple buttons to take people where they want to go so that it loads very quickly and they can find what they need, and then your information and your phone number. That's a better experience than trying to jam it all in there, all those high-impact things you have on your site. You have to figure out what people are intending to do there. And you also, the reason why people most often arrive at mobile sites is either because they were searching on Google for something, or because they got a piece of email marketing, or they looked up something that had a link that went out to people's mobile sites. And so what's interesting is how much email, people are consuming their email on their mobile devices, but people are still sending out emails with big, huge graphics with embedded text inside of them. In the end of the day, that's not an effective form of marketing anymore. When almost 50% of people's email they're consuming on a smartphone, you have to make sure that any email marketing you're doing is actually mobile friendly, which is weirdly going backwards. Like, we all evolved to big pictures and all this stuff, and you need to go backwards and think much more simply. Like, a simple picture and clear text so that the person can get that information on their mobile device. So large volume text link to view images, large, once again, very clear and straightforward, not too much in it, don't try too hard. And the last thing to think about, I have really absolutely no idea how far along I am in this presentation. It's okay, we have questions afterwards. I'd love to talk about this stuff forever. So, but anyway, our last thing together is like the biggest word on the mind of a millennial, which is what we call those people born in 1980, is me. Is like not being like a celebrity, but it's like I'd like it personal, I'd like it customized, I'd like some personal attention, I'd like the expectation levels of what is possible to be uniquely for them is really amazing. It's just a generational difference. They believe everything. Listen, we did not grow up in a world where I could go on and design my own Nike sneakers with whatever colors I wanted. So if you could make a Nike sneaker, you could make anything else in the world because you think that is the biggest mass market factory-made product there is. There is a total belief that everything in the world should be customized, every experience should be personalized, and so I really think that that is something that even in this world where there's so much beautiful product, like why would it be necessary to do that? It is very important to think about it. So one thing, part of the thing is also that as a part of this personalized experience, and this is also just a millennial thing, they hate to be sold anything. They like to be educated, they like to be talked to, people like to have a conversation, but they do not like to be sold. They just sniff it out. They're like vehemently against the whole concept of being sold anything. Because by the way, they buy, they aren't sold. Right? You get the difference. I'm buying, you're not selling me. So it's a tonal, kind of difference. They just don't even like the sense that you would be able to sway them with your tricky, salesy voodoo. That doesn't mean you aren't selling them, but you're going to sell them the right, way. So what you need to do is create a personalized consultation experience for them. Whatever that could potentially mean in your store, from like a way you're thinking about when people are coming into the store. If someone calls, sure, we'd love to, instead of an appointment, to have a consultation with you. Consultation is completely not aggressive, right? It's almost like, well, it's a consultation, so we're not going to try to sell you anything. It's a different way to think about even the language that you're using talking to your customers, and say, let me just get you up to speed. Don't assume in any way that you're going to make a transaction in that first experience. It's truly establishing a relationship at that point. And then I think you really need to be thinking from that point onward, how am I continuing this relationship? How am I making it feel like I am, that, I always said, people walk into these experiences saying, I'm important and I'm going to spend my money and I want to make sure that I'm going to work with who's going to treat me the best, because that's the way it should work, because I know that they need me. This is the bridal customer's twist on what it used to be, the industry's out to get, that was the sort of thing in the 80s, say the word wedding and they triple the price by, 300%. Well, now it's the opposite, I know they need me, I know I'm a really important customer, so I want to see who's going to do it my way and work with me to do that. And I don't mean it in a very aggressive way, I just think it's almost like there's another defense mechanism of not being taken advantage of. They want to be a little bit in the driver's seat. So I think that setting up a once again, the idea that you understand that they're going to take their time and do this process on their own. You want to give them any information that they can have, but that they're going to make their own, decision, and however you can be of help to them, and that then you're personalizing every touch point. You're thanking them, whether it's with an email immediately after, where it's coming into your store. They're probably not going to follow you on Facebook. Don't even I'm not going to follow you on Facebook. And when you say, follow me on Facebook, really? You think my guy friends who I'm following a jeweler on Facebook? No. So don't even think you're going to get that. They're not going to follow you on Twitter, even though they're all on Twitter. That's for them to be with their friends. They might check you out there to see what's going on, but you might want to say, is there a private email address I can send you if we have any, events going on? You can be of service to them. If you think of it as that, truly how can I be of service to you, and provide a value proposition for that, you can get that email, personalize the email, send a thank you note for coming in. Here's my cell phone number. If you're the proprietor of the store, something that feels like you're reaching above and beyond. And all the way down to, I think that once again, personalizing packaging, things like that, keeping in touch, all very important. And I think this also speaks to why we've seen this rise in customization. So, it's up 7%. People's expectation, between choosing an existing style and going completely custom or partially custom, this whole idea of customization is on the rise. People want to put their personal stamp on whatever it is. It's not enough to put a personal stamp by choosing your own unique stone. You want to adjust it a little bit. It's an amazing thing to me. I personally would never have the confidence to do that, but I'm shocked at the number of people, number of even guys I've talked to, I'm getting a ring, but I've made some changes to it. As if that was, I don't know, it's hard to understand. I think it's just part of a sort of generational thing. I can improve upon this. I know the guy has been designing rings for 25 years and is the top of his game, but I'm just going to put some twists on it that are, and I would be like, oh, shut up. But I think that you need to, that's just part of their way of thinking about things, is to add an adjustment, to make it more personal, and so I think it's something to, I don't actually know the details. I know that there is a lot of that, kind of available, but it is just interesting, and that the groom is most likely to do that customization, as if that extra little level of investment says how much he tried to do that. And of these people, a lot of them are then feeling the need to kind of, so I think that this concept that we will work with you to customize, a ring, and even having that language out there is interesting because it appeals, obviously, to a lot of the customer base. And I think, this whole kind of idea of establishing this relationship, one of the interesting questions we have to ask in this survey is, after you purchased your ring, did you hear from your jeweler ever again? And only 50% of them did, and that to me is kind of the most appalling stat in this entire thing. It is incredibly important to follow up on this relationship. This 28-year-old, well, it might not be for 5 years, but they are on the path to a jewelry purchasing lifetime, right? First thing is push presents. You do not want to be off these people's radar. It's a 3-year window before those people are popping out a baby, and this is one of the most greatest inventions for the people in this room. It has now become essential to buy your woman a big fat ring, necklace, this when she has a baby. It's awesome. Often bigger than the engagement ring. I'm like, this is what? That's what I said. Push presents. Push presents are they're the bomb. So you really want to have that, you want them to not look anywhere else for that present. And by all means, that does not, that you should send them an email and be like their nagging mother-in-law and saying, when you have a baby, please think back to come. Not the right move. It's just sort of, once again, kind of making sure that they are, in your system in a very sort of light way. But if nothing else, a personalized thank you note after they purchase a $5,000 item from you is a touch that really goes a long way. It's not that hard. Get yourself some have someone in nice handwriting in your store, or the owner themselves, find a way to write a thank you note to the person who purchased that big, yes, question already. I am almost at the last slide.
Just a little comment. Make sure that the ring is given before the thank you.
I was going to say that, exactly. I personally, I would be asking if they, particularly when the couple are shopping together, by that time they actually even know, sort of when the wedding is. And you might not, but yes, very good point. It's not like you want to be with a big, Jessica's Jewelers, engagement rings are our specialty, right? Yeah, you don't want that to arrive in the mail. But yeah, it's just important to be thinking about it. And this is sort of my sort of final point. And I read this on a favorite guy I follow, who's a marketing guru, and he didn't say this exact phrase, but he was talking about that that if you changed your consideration about being in the whatever industry you're in the jewelry selling business, and if you actually just changed your entire mindset that you were in the relationship making business, because it is actually when you sold that ring, so say you got the $5,000 for the ring, but what you also got for yourself was a relationship that's an asset that you then have as a company. That ring, if you actually were putting dollar amounts on it, at that moment in time, that future customer is actually worth more than the money that you just got and the potential lifetime value. So if you changed your thinking a little bit and said, I'm in the business of aggregating really happy customers that I can have a lifelong relationship with, and I'm building relationships as a business. I think it changes a lot of the things that we all do. It's not about getting that sale, it's about making an amazing relationship. And I think that you can make, only a certain number of the relationships, hopefully a lot of them, will pay off in a sale. But even the people who aren't making the purchase from you, they're an investment. Anyone who has been into your store and had a conversation with one of your salespeople, seen your environment, and had whatever your brand, impression is, you actually gain something from that moment in time, as long as you did a good job doing what you know you do well. So you're gathering your sales and your customers, and you're gathering people who are on their way to potentially being, customers from you. And I think that almost could be the driving principle behind everything, that has been in this presentation today. And Laura Cave, who did my lovely introduction, is actually going to be giving a super brass tacks version of this, even more brass tacks than I gave today. What time is your presentation, Laura? Where is Laura?
Tomorrow at 5.
Tomorrow at 5. So if you haven't gotten enough of our, demanding advice, you can get some more from her because she has lots of stuff. But do we have time for question and answer?
One question, ma'am.
Okay, I guess we do. Anyway, so thank you. And yes.
One question. Have you done any research about the people looking for the range, preferring the men versus the lady salespeople? I mean, amongst the salesperson, who would they recommend? Who would they prefer?
That's a very good question for next year. Yeah, no, that's a very interesting. And here's what I would say. Women, we've seen in other areas in this, and it might be tweaked, but I'll just give it to you, and I'm not gonna say it's true because I haven't done the research, but they like to have someone their age in the store. Women like to talk to people their own age, because that's what we do. We have them when we like something, and then we turn and we look and I need to see someone oh, she knows everything. Because if you remember, she's judging it all based on style. Most of us don't actually know what we like. I asked Rachel what I like. I don't actually know. I think I know something, but then I want to hear someone else. Yes, you like that. I'm like, oh, okay, good, I like that. So you're looking for that other person who is verifying this is what, particularly that's why we're sharing everything on the internet, right? Because you want to have someone repeat back to you what you believe. And so I always think have someone in your store who's their age who can, yes. Yes, okay, you go ahead. Did you give her, and someone had your cell phone? They gave you a text message, see? Here you go, there you go. Internet access, yes.
Customization is very important. Matter of fact, our own original designs that we sell out of the case, in addition to our complete custom designs, we are our #1 bridal vendor. So our store is very much self-branded. Now, we do have some lines, and they are represented in building TheKnot. We hope TheKnot do help self-branded store as opposed to helping the designers and other brands that they work with. Is this something you think about?
Yes, we do. And Laura's actually our expert on our our platform and all the products in there. But
I was just going to say, our whole store referral program is what you're talking about and allows you to connect to the designers. So that's one way. When a bride comes in and she's looking for a design, she goes to her designer engagement ring search tool, she picks browsing style, and then she finds you if she's interested in line and compare it. But some people know they want to do something custom because it's the person wants to and so
they go the other way.
they go the other way and look through our local directories and see rings and jewelry categories, and they go to their market and they look for a jeweler. And so it's a great place in your storefront to make sure that you emphasize that you specialize in custom rings and pictures of this design for clients because
So and if you put your yes, we have unlimited images for local vendors, which is a key thing. And we've actually now made that when you search on the top of TheKnot, if you put in the right information associated with your images from your local profiles will come up as part of the global searches on TheKnot as well. So we actually have, if I search on, it depends, you have to make sure you put in the good information. I'm sure Laura's going to talk about that in detail tomorrow at 5. But there is a way now that you can be basically building your own directories, and those directories will feed into the global directories. So that's a big change we just made. It's good to showcase your custom work, because you can really be doing both. On your page, if you're linking and you're saying all the designers you're carrying, those are one click away. You can also do, here's some of our custom designs, or here's a best-selling, design. But yes, in turquoise.
Yeah, I was going to mention that we have a PDF of the slides. So you can drop us your card either after this session or tomorrow at the booth. We're at booth 1705, and we'll be mailing
Yeah, we really want, and actually, and if you do have questions that you want to ask in your survey, like tell Nikki, tell the person you work with from TheKnot, and we actually have a place where we store all the questions that we want to ask, and the next time we execute the survey. This is part of our job, is to make you and us all better educated about how to do a brilliant job for this customer, because they're super important to all of our, success. Any other questions? Yes.
If you have the bride, the sale happens, what is the conversion rate of her friends and family to also buy bridal?
I think we actually have that research done in there, although I don't have it committed to memory. But I'm sure that's and one of the things that I actually, if you ever did research with your thing, there's only one question. Does anyone know what a net promoter score is? Okay, like the one question you need to ask your customers, you never need to do a big deep survey or anything else. There's only one question they've decided is the ultimate question to ask someone, and which is, would you refer your friend to shop in our store? That is the only question that you ever need to understand about your business, really. Or it's a great single way to measure where you're doing over time. They call it the Net Promoter Score. And it really aggregates all the potential things you could ask them. But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Like, did I do a good enough job that you would tell your friend to come here? And it's an important, it's an important way to think about if you ever do any research or even calling, like, people when you ask them will just be like, sure, they won't ask you really. But it's an interesting thing if you had an opportunity to do a blind survey with your customers or, after a year, be like, oh, we'd love to help improve our service. Could you ask this, could you answer this 3-question survey? It would be a good way to understand and to benchmark yourself and even your sales staff. But yeah, we should look deep. I think it's like a 700-question survey or something insane. And 14,000 girls completed it. Just goes to show you. They want us to do a better job. But I think we have that. All right. Is everyone getting up, going? You have places to be, things to do? Thank you so much.